We're trained to cheer when the villain loses. The hero wins, the music swells, and the bad guy gets dragged off in cuffs or melts into a puddle. But here's a question that quietly ruins a lot of childhood favorites once you notice it. What if the villain was right? Not right to do what they did. Their methods were usually terrible. But a surprising number of animated villains spent the whole movie pointing at a real problem, while every so-called hero looked the other way, and the story punished them for it anyway. Some of them were grieving. Some were trying to warn us. One of them was literally the victim of her own movie. Today we're breaking down the animated villains who saw the truth before anyone else did. For each one, we'll look at what they actually wanted, why the heroes fought them, and the exact moment the story proved they understood the real problem better than the people who beat them. Let's get into it. Mr. Freeze first up. The saddest pair of eyes in all of Gotham City. Mr. Freeze from Batman, the animated series. One episode, Heart of Ice, took a goofy ice pun villain and turned him into one of the most tragic characters in cartoon history. So what did Freeze actually want? Just one thing: to save his wife. Victor Fries was a gifted scientist whose wife Nora was dying of an incurable disease. He froze her in cryogenic stasis to buy time while he searched for a cure. That was the entire goal. No world domination, no riches, just a cure for the woman he loved. The catch was that he was running the experiment on his company's dime, in his company's lab. So his boss, a smug corporate CEO named Ferris Boyle, barged in and shut it down. Victor warned him that cutting the power would kill Nora. Boyle didn't care. He knocked Victor into a tank of cryogenic chemicals and left him for dead. Why does Batman oppose him? Because the accident left Victor able to survive only in the cold, and the grief curdled into something vicious. Freeze starts endangering innocent people to get his revenge on Boyle, and that's a line Batman won't let anyone cross. That's fair. The hero has to stop a man putting bystanders in danger. But now comes the moment that flips the whole thing on its head. Batman breaks into the company archives and finds the security footage from that night. He watches a desperate husband beg for his wife's life, and a rich executive coldly end it to protect his profits. And Batman's reaction isn't triumph, it's sympathy. He realizes Freeze was right about everything that mattered. Right that Boyle was the real monster. Right that the powerful man would be shielded while the desperate one got crushed and erased. Batman even hands the tape to a reporter to expose Boyle to the world. Think about how rare that is. The hero agrees with the villain so completely that he goes and finishes the villain's mission for him. He just refuses to let Freeze take innocent people down in the process. And yet the episode ends with Freeze alone in a freezing cell, cradling a music box, apologizing to his wife. Boyle loses his reputation. Freeze loses everything. The man who correctly named the villain becomes the villain on record. That's the pattern, and it only gets sharper from here. Tekka next, a villain who isn't a villain at all. She just got cast as one. Tekka, the lava demon from Disney's Moana. What did Tekka want? For most of the film, it looks like pure destruction. She's a towering creature of molten rock and fire who guards the one path Moana has to cross. Everything about her screams final boss, but her real want stays hidden until the climax, and it rewrites the entire movie. Tekka is Tefiti, the same being. Tefiti was a gentle island goddess who used her heart, a glowing green stone, to create life and raise the islands out of the sea. Then a demigod named Maui tore that heart out of her chest to hand its power to humans and soak up their applause. The instant her heart was gone, Tefiti collapsed into Tekka. So what she wants underneath all that fire is the one thing that was stolen from her. Her own heart. Her own self. Why do the heroes oppose her? Because without that heart, a darkness is spreading island to island, killing the plants, the fish, and eventually the people. To save the world, Moana has to get past the monster. Standard hero logic. And here's the moment that proves Tekka understood something everyone else missed for 1,000 years. Moana stops fighting. She looks at this raging demon and sees the truth the legends got wrong. This isn't a monster attacking the world. This is a victim guarding the wound where her heart used to be. Moana walks straight toward her, completely unafraid, and gently reminds her that someone stole her heart, but that theft is not who she really is. And the second the heart goes back in, Tekka doesn't lash out. She blooms into a goddess and brings a dead ocean roaring back to life. She was right to rage. She was the most wronged character in the entire film, treated as the monster while the actual thief got the charming song. It's a stunning trick, because the movie spends an hour teaching you to fear her before quietly revealing you should have felt sorry for her the whole time. Our next villain pulls almost the same move on you, except this one wears a suit and runs a company. Henry Waternoose now for a villain who was so right the movie literally had to scramble to prove him wrong. Henry Waternoose, the CEO from Monsters Incorporated. What did Waternoose want? To save his company and his city. The whole world of Monstropolis runs on the screams of human children. Monsters scare kids. The screams get bottled into energy, and that energy powers everything. Waternoose has run the Scream factory for 3 generations, and he can see it dying. Kids just aren't scared of monsters anymore. They've grown numb, the scares stop landing, and the Scream supply is drying up fast. He says it out loud to anyone who'll listen. There's an energy crisis, and if nobody solves it, the whole city goes dark. Why do the heroes oppose him? Because his solution is genuinely horrifying. He partners with the sneaky, slithering Randall to build a Scream extractor, a machine that forcibly tears screams out of kidnapped children. There is no defending that. Sully and Mike have to stop him, full stop, and when he's finally caught, he's hauled away swearing he'd kidnap 1,000 kids before he'd ever let the company fall. But listen closely to his very last words as the police drag him off. He tells Sully that he just doomed the company, that the whole operation is finished, and that the energy crisis is only going to get worse now. And in that exact moment, he is completely provably correct. The Scream supply really was collapsing. The threat really was real. He understood the danger better than any cheerful monster on that factory floor. And here's the proof. The movie has to invent a last-second miracle to survive him. Sully accidentally discovers that laughter produces 10 times more energy than screams. That total fluke is the only reason the city lives. Waternoose diagnosed the disease perfectly. He just reached for the most evil cure imaginable, and the heroes got lucky enough to stumble onto a kinder one. He was the one executive in that building who saw the iceberg coming. He just decided to steer the ship straight into it. And if a doomed CEO is a tough sell for sympathy, wait until you meet a literal supervillain that the internet openly defends. Magneto time for the big one. Because this villain has entire catchphrase built around him being correct. Magneto was right. If you've spent 5 minutes online, you've seen it. And it comes straight out of the animated X-Men, both the original X-Men, the animated series, and the acclaimed revival X-Men '97. What does Magneto want? Survival for his people. As a boy, he watched his family and his community slaughtered for being different, and he swore he would never let it happen again. So when mutants start appearing, hated and feared simply for being born, he reaches one cold conclusion. Humanity will never truly accept them. They will always, eventually, come for them. And the only safety is to stop trusting humans and take it. Why do the heroes oppose him? Because his answer is war and mutant supremacy, which would just build a brand new machine of oppression with the victims swapped around. His old friend Charles Xavier believes the opposite, that humans and mutants can coexist if the X-Men just keep proving they're worthy, over and over. That's the real conflict of the entire franchise. Hope versus history. And here's the unbearable part. The story keeps proving Magneto right. Humans build giant sentinel robots designed to hunt mutants down. Hate groups rise in the streets. He even tries doing it Xavier's way for a while. He takes over the X-Men. He stands trial before the United Nations. He genuinely reaches for peace. And the humans come for him anyway. Then comes the moment that broke the internet. In X-Men '97, the mutant sanctuary of Genosha is wiped out, thousands dead in minutes, as ordinary humans turn themselves into living weapons just to erase mutant kind. And one of the very officials who spent years fighting Magneto looks at the ashes and admits it out loud. He was right. Not right to wage war, but right about the warning the heroes kept refusing to hear. The dream is beautiful. The nightmare just keeps coming true. That's why those 3 little words refuse to die. Magneto was right isn't really a fan joke. It's the show quietly admitting that the optimist and the realist had been arguing for decades, and the realist kept getting proven correct. Tai Lung, let's slow down for a story about a kid who did everything right and got crushed anyway. Tai Lung, the snow leopard from Kung Fu Panda. What did Tai Lung want? The Dragon Scroll, and the title that came with it. But to understand that want, you have to see how it was planted in him. He was abandoned as a cub at the gates of a temple. Master Shifu took him in, raised him like a son, and discovered a once-in-a-generation prodigy. Shifu trained him, pushed him, and told him again and again that he was destined to become the Dragon Warrior. Tai Lung believed it, because the person he trusted most spent years promising it. He mastered all 1,000 scrolls of Kung Fu. He trained until his bones cracked. He became exactly what they told him to be. Why do the heroes oppose him? Because when Master Oogway finally judged him, the old turtle sensed darkness in his heart and refused him the scroll. Tai Lung lost control, laid waste to the valley, and spent 20 years in prison nursing his fury. By the time he breaks out, he's a real threat, and Poe and the Furious Five have to stop him. But here's the moment that makes his case impossible to wave away. On the day he's denied, Tai Lung turns to his father figure for support, and Shifu says nothing. Doesn't argue, doesn't defend him. The man who built that dream inside him just watches in silence as it's ripped away. Tai Lung didn't invent his ambition from nowhere. The adults manufactured it, drove him to it, promised him the prize, and abandoned him the second it got inconvenient. And the proof that he had a point comes years later, from Shifu's own mouth. He confesses that he was always proud of Tai Lung, and that his own pride blinded him to what he was turning the boy into. The villain rotted in a cage for 2 decades. and his own master quietly admits he helped put him there. It's the kind of betrayal that can turn a gifted student into a monster. And our next character was broken in almost exactly the same way, except this one is small, soft, and smells like strawberries. Lotso. Speaking of being thrown away, our next villain might be the most heartbreaking teddy bear ever drawn. Lotso, the pink strawberry-scented bear who runs Sunnyside Daycare like a prison in Toy Story 3. What did Lotso want, deep down? To never be abandoned again. On the surface, he just wants control. He rules the daycare like a warden, shipping the new toys into the room where the toddlers smash them while he sits safe and comfortable. At his lowest, he leaves the heroes to burn in an incinerator, which is unforgivable, and he earns his ending strapped to the front of a garbage truck. But underneath the cruelty is a belief he built from real pain. Lotso once belonged to a girl named Daisy who adored him. One day, he got left behind by accident. He didn't give up. He made the long journey all the way home, full of hope, and looked through the window to see Daisy holding a brand new Lotso. He'd been replaced. Something snapped, and he decided that this is simply what a toy is. Loved for a while, then discarded. Why do the heroes oppose him? Because he's turned that private pain into tyranny, terrorizing toys who never did a thing to him. And he's willing to let them die to save himself. And here's the moment that makes him so hard to argue with. His whole worldview that toys get outgrown and tossed aside is the exact fear the entire Toy Story franchise is built on. Woody spends 3 movies terrified of that very thing. Andy does grow up. The toys do get left behind. Lotso isn't lying about the danger. He's living proof of it. The one real difference is choice. Woody faces the same heartbreak and chooses love anyway, while Lotso let it rot him from the inside. So the heroes are right to stop him. But notice what the movie never actually does. It never tells him he was wrong about how the story ends. It just shows a braver way to face it. That's the quiet horror of Lotso. He isn't wrong about the world. He just gave up on it. Which brings us to maybe the single most debated villain on this entire list, Syndrome. And finally, a villain whose big idea still splits audiences right down the middle. Syndrome from The Incredibles. What did Syndrome want? Honestly, to matter. He started as Buddy, a brilliant kid who idolized Mr. Incredible and just wanted to be his sidekick. No powers, but plenty of genius. He built his own rocket boots from scratch, and when he offered all of that to his hero, Mr. Incredible told him to fly home because he works alone. Cold, dismissive, and to a worshipful child, completely crushing. Buddy grew up bitter and became Syndrome, an arms dealer with an empire of gadgets and one enormous plan. He's going to mass-produce his inventions so that anyone can buy their way into powers. Because, in his own words, when everyone's super, no one will be. Why do the heroes oppose him? Because the road he takes there is monstrous. He lures retired superheroes to his island and kills them off to test and perfect his weapons. He's vain, selfish, and genuinely cruel. The Incredibles absolutely have to take him down. But here's the moment his philosophy gets uncomfortable. Sit with what he's actually arguing. Syndrome believes greatness shouldn't be reserved for a lucky few who happen to be born special. That an ordinary person with enough brains and effort should be able to stand shoulder to shoulder with the gods. And think about it for a second. Every single hero in that universe was simply born with their gifts. Syndrome is the one character who built his out of nothing but a workbench and a brain. In almost any other movie, that's the hero's origin story. He wanted to democratize power. He just happened to be a sociopath about it. So the film treats his entire premise as the threat, and he dies for it, pulled into a jet engine by his own cape. The kid who got told he wasn't special enough spent his whole life trying to prove that anyone could be. 20 years later, the comment section still can't agree on whether he had a point. And that's the real mark of a great villain. If people are still arguing about the argument 2 decades on, the writers clearly hit a nerve that a simple bad guy never could. So here's the thread running through all of them. A husband who named the real monster. A goddess punished for a crime done to her. A boss who saw the crash coming. A survivor begging the world not to repeat its worst mistake. A prodigy built to fail. A bear who knew how the story ends. And a kid who just wanted to prove that special isn't something you have to be born with. Every one of them did something that earned their defeat. And every one of them was also pointing at a truth the heroes found too uncomfortable to say out loud. That's what makes a villain stick with you for years. The best ones aren't just obstacles to get past. They're the part of the story that's brave enough to say the thing nobody else will. And they force the hero, and us, to actually think instead of just cheering. Misunderstood doesn't mean innocent. Every villain here did real damage, but every one of them also understood the real problem better than the people who defeated them, and the story buried that truth under a defeat. So which of these villains do you think actually had a point? Tell me in the comments. And if you enjoyed this one, you already know what to do.